let it go, breathe a little, just let it breathe a little, stop and just let it breathe a little, let it breathe. My train just passed, so as I wait for another, this is the rhyme that I uttered. See, it's more than having the world in my hands. It's like the galaxy is spread across the keys of this baby grand. So as we expand together for better or worse, I create music for the you and I first. Seems like a blessing, but it's also a curse. When I'm deep in depression, that's the time that it works. My best material is written when everything's pivotal. Each thought is critical. It's like the tears from my eyes rains on the pain and becomes a lubrication for the thoughts in my brain. Let it go, let it go, let it go, let it go.
So hello all and welcome, Nicko. So everybody can hear us, right? If you can hear. Thank you for Nicko accepting our this Fireside chat interview online. Today our guest is Nicko Widjaja, CEO of BRI Ventures. He's an early tech investment pioneer. He has a career span of 15 years in venture capital, corporate transformation, and also startup ecosystem. He was formerly the CEO of MDI Ventures, a Telkom Indonesia backup venture capital with investments in over 10 countries. And now he has founded his own BRI Ventures fund. And we are very happy to welcome him on our live Fireside chat today. So Nicko, a very short question. Why did you become an investor?
Okay. Very good question. Why? Well, I started off as I grew up in Silicon Valley. I grew up in San Francisco. I remember my first career. I was working for a multiple startups. Back then it was called .coms back in 2002, 2003, and I was just fascinated with the culture of Silicon Valley, the vibrant culture that they have, the egalitarianism that they promote, and and everything, kind of have a theme, kind of have a flair of taste behind it. So as far as I remember, the young me back when I was in my 20s, I always want to work in a Silicon Valley settings type of environment. But I know it's tough to become a startup founder because it was really meticulous. It was really tough. It was really required a lot of disciplines. So I remember when I was 25, then I switched gear into investment career. So I worked for Delta Partners in in Silicon Valley. I become investment analyst for them before I finally returned to Indonesia. And when I returned to Indonesia, I joined one of the corporate here doing M&A while waiting for the internet revolution to start in this part of the world. So of course my first fund, it was back in 2010. It was called BRI Ventures. It was one of the first Indonesia venture capital. I think it was like maybe 4 or 5 of us back in the day. The fund didn't work out back in 2013. So I raised through Telkom Indonesia. When we raised through Telkom Indonesia, it turned out to be, I think, one of the most rewarding career milestone in my life, right? So Telkom awarded us 100 million US back in 2014. And 100 million US back in 2014, it was really, it was really unexplained by any of us, partners back then, because Gojek wasn't around 2014, and Tokopedia was, I guess, a mere $75-80 million company. So so we learned by doing. I remember because I remember when we got that 100 million by MDI Ventures, we didn't even celebrate. Us as a team, we were just like scared, man. It was like our first fund was 5 million, and then here we are 3 years later, we were upgraded by 20 times, 20 times our money. So and it was really we thought that how can we I hope we can manage this properly or so. And we got into deals that wasn't really high profile deals, so to speak. We got into deals that is more mature, that has a time to liquidity 3-4 years only, so we invest in Series B, Series C, or even pre-IPO. So, but the deal with investment, the tricky part is that you get invited into the round, right? And especially those pre-IPO deals, which is very rare to come by. So and I remember back in 2015 we first deploy our fund in MDI Ventures. By 2017 December, we had one IPO in Japan. And then 2018 we have another IPO in Australia. So I guess it was like an iteration of what we do counts, as in that we need to we don't really do spray and pray kind of approach like most VCs back in the day, but what we do was really sprinkle and reflect. So when we put our money in Series C or Series B, so we reflect whether this is the right decision to get into this type of companies.
So also you have established BRI Ventures last year. I mean, I think it was a great opportunity to collect these funds last year, because as the outbreak goes on, will it be difficult for LPs or funds to raise money? And also, what are BRI Ventures targets? I mean, which companies or startups are you focusing on?
Right. Well, BRI is Bank Rakyat Indonesia. It's the largest bank in Indonesia currently. We've been working for the thesis for BRI Ventures since 2018. 2017 or 2018. I can't remember, but during those days we realized that the next wave of startups will come in the form of financial technology. Because the first wave of unicorns come in the form of e-commerce, right? The second wave of unicorns will come in the form of the supporting adjacent sector to that, which is payment, and then lending, and then all that follows to support that commercial activities. And we realized that BRI is, not only has the biggest asset in all the banks in Indonesia, but also have the widest, reach to rural areas. Because the bank has been around for 127 years. So it has been around for so long, even before the Republic was established. So so we know when we try to combine, between the technological aspects to it and BRI wide reach to rural areas, the impact will be considerably huge, and it will touch a lot of lives. So we are investing in companies right now that is only focusing on fintech, like Invest3, for example, and Tiny Hub, and a lot of companies that is now in Series C and Series D, that is about to, that is about to come around, even reaching out to other Southeast Asia countries like Vietnam and the Philippines, because considering they have the same profile like Indonesia. But yeah, so
what are the ticket size that you do investment, by the way?
We are doing a minimum of 5 million to 15 million. Our fund in BRI Ventures is 250 million. So and this is our first year, I guess, to do deployment, 2020, and our investment period will be 5 years, and we will try to look for the highest growth of companies that could support the group's innovation, group innovation. Burak, I'm losing you. Oh, hello. Burak?
Yes, I am back. So I missed the last part of your answer. But what are your ticket size and which startups are you focusing, by the way?
Excuse me? Burak? I kind of lost you earlier.
All right. Yes. What are the ticket size and which companies do you focus?
We are focusing on fintech sector only, including lending, payment, any supporting of the lending and loan technology, like big data and everything else. And our ticket size is between 2 million to 15 million. That's the rough number. Range of numbers.
What is the fund amount, total amount, by the way?
250.
250. And how long this fund will last?
The investment period will be 4 or 5 years, and we are entering the first year of our investment period, just the beginning of 2020, and this COVID outbreak is happening, and I don't know. But for all fairness, though, we see a lot of companies, good companies right now, that is raising less, right? So instead of raising Series D, they are raising Series C2, let's say, for example. And I guess this is a great opportunity for us to get into a sweet spot of the right valuation, because I believe that the market needs self-correction anyway, because I feel the market has been too rich in this past 4 years. It's too rich, right? Especially all the valuation with the the growing of unicorns in Indonesia. Companies value at more than $1 billion in just 3 years. But I guess whatever happened right now with this COVID-19 outbreak, it's leveling back into an equilibrium that we need, a market correction that we need.
And I mean, I understand that you see this. When you invite founders to an investment meeting, what are your red flags? I mean, which questions do you ask them?
Oh, red flags, yeah. Well, first of all, the red flag will be if the cap table is messed up, right? Because we are in growth stage investors, and everything else was validated by the previous investors anyway. We don't do seed investment. We don't do early stage. But for those, we have our partners that does that usually. But for growth stage investors like ourselves, the first thing that I see, that I take a look, was the cap table. I don't want to look at the cap table where Series B, say Series B round, and you have already 30 parties into it. It's quite disturbing.
And also, what are the common mistakes that especially these early stage or scale-ups do? You have also a deep experience on startups and professional life. You have probably seen lots of startups. So what are the common mistakes, especially in early days of startups?
Okay. The early days of startups, I think most of the problems with founders is that they don't know how to manage the runways, or they understand what runways means, right? And especially for the first-time entrepreneurs, when they look at business is something that is indefinite. The time is indefinite. They raise seed money and they raise pre-series A money, and then everything else is indefinite. What they should do is, if they want to be successful in raising multiple rounds of funds for the future, they have to see it clearly that what they want to achieve in a short amount of time. And especially when you are raising a bridge round, for example, what do you want to achieve in those runway of 7-8 months? What are you trying to validate? What are you trying to prove? What are you trying to to get your investors to look at the sector differently than the rest of the world? So and I see I see many good founders that trap into in the end trap into a sustainable business that they do. So they treat their startups as their cash cow, and that is really troublesome, because when you are doing a startup, your startup should be aiming for exponential growth. It's not something that you should that you that you treat as cash cow.
So also you have lots of stories probably in earlier portfolio companies. What are good stories? I mean, success stories in earlier experience of your portfolio. Do you have them, and what are the common points that they do?
Oh yeah. Well, let me give you a better example. I mean, our first fund, back in 2010, failed miserably. $5 million US, and it went nowhere, right? Because I think because when we do investment, we are aiming for because back in the day, startup investment is very uncommon. So what we invest is money for money, meaning that, when we invest in the company, we really want to get our hand dirty, right? Uh, but instead, any good VC firm, they they don't they don't do quite like that. They give advice, yes, and they open up channel and everything else, but they don't really run the company that they invested in. So back in 2010 and until 2013, I remember that I was really trying to get my hand dirty, to get involved into a lot of companies that we invested in, and and then it kind of create a confusion, between the stakeholders, shareholders, the investors, and the entrepreneurs itself. Uh, yeah, and one of the most successful startups that I've invested in my life was those who have really a sharp vision on what's to come. This company called Payfast is one of Indonesia's leading fintech company too. We invested in them back in 2017 when they were still a seed company, and we invested through Indigo Incubator, owned by Telkom, and it was really rewarding right now because at least it values like 100x from what we invested in last couple of years ago.
And I mean, meanwhile, should you give us some insights about the Indonesian market, internet market, how it is growing, and recent years, what happened? You have unicorns, I think, 5 unicorns, and maybe more when the outbreak completes.
Yeah, I guess, as mid of last year, we just have another unicorn called Ovo. And I think the Indonesian market is very vibrant, quite vibrant, and it's the biggest market in Southeast Asia, right? Because if you are a company based in Malaysia, or if you're a company based in Singapore, you will not win the whole region without winning Indonesia first, right? So if you see companies like Grab, for example, they move their headquarters from Singapore to Jakarta quite recently too, because they want to battle with Gojek head to head, and it's really real, when you see the head to head battle between these two giants. And I guess pre-COVID-19, we know and we heard there's there was gonna be like another two or one or two companies that will reach the unicorn status, but I think with this COVID-19 crisis, I'm looking at maybe a postponed projections with all this with all this crisis, and it's too early to tell too, because we just entering our second week of quote unquote the state of emergency. We don't know how many are infected yet, and we don't know how many are impacted yet by this crisis.
And what do you expect after the crisis in internet sector in Indonesia? Are you optimistic, or I mean, do you think that the valuations will go more realistic, as you mentioned earlier?
Well, I hope the valuation will stay more realistic. I don't believe that this COVID-19 is the black swan of 2020 though. But if anything, this COVID-19 will be a market correction for the region. Of course, exit will be delayed. Of course, some liquidity will not be reached this year, but it will create, a more prudent approach to investment anyway, which is what we are promoting since our early days and BRI Ventures. That you don't do spray and pray. What you do is you have to analyze properly. You have to see every sector properly. you know, the age of spray and pray, it's over really. It was good for the first you know, the early days of Indonesia startup development, but not it's not the case anymore.
And what do you recommend for the startups, especially in these recession days, to survive?
Ooh, they have to see their pivot. They have to be able to get the cash, because I guess those companies that has little cash right now, they will not survive. And especially for, those companies that they have a very short runway, they will be the first who you know, who's gonna be extinct.
Perfect. I mean, we can also get questions from our audience. We are very happy to welcome your questions. I'm reading the right side of the chat box, and if you have any questions to Nicko, please write it with the question mark, so it will be also popping up from the questions section. Then we can also read them. Meanwhile, I'm asking some other couple of questions to Nicko. Please ask very relevant questions to especially Indonesian market or investment processes. While I was checking out the questions, some of the founders ask how to establish their teams, because team building is very difficult. And how can these early stage founders can match with the good teams?
Ooh, yeah. Well, especially if you're in Indonesia, I mean, hiring a team will be, you know, will be somewhat hard, because we don't have that much technical people. That, you know, we don't have. I don't think Indonesia produce much engineer to support the sector, right? But what you can do was that if you you know, get into your community, get into your former campus, get introductions, go into you know, tech events, you know, get connected to people, right? But I guess before you you know, before you know, before you answer how you are able to hire good people, maybe you know, you need to understand what is your dynamics of the co-founders really about, right? Because people want to join the cause, not joining the company that you are starting, at least. I remember when I first recruit my team. I recruit my team from my campus where I teach, you know, where I used to teach. And you know, I used to teach at UPH Business School. It's one private campus in Jakarta. And this is back in 2010, 2011. I remember that nobody knows what venture capital was. So I, you know, so I put, you know, some of the venture capital case studies in my teaching. So and see, you know, if one or two guys came to me and really want to talk to me about, you know, what they can, what we can do together outside campus. So that's probably it.
So a question from Indonesia has been asked from Achmat Rahuf. Proud to you to be global speaker. Want you to ask about BRI Venture regarding the startup criteria that will be hired by BRI Ventures. Second question
funded,
is
right?
business. Yes, funded probably. Yes, the business model conducted by BRI Ventures, is it the same as financing the model in Indonesia? If there is a guidebook, can you share it with us?
No, yeah. Well, we invest only in Series B and above. That's question number one. That's the criteria, meaning that you need to have a previous investor first before we got in. and they have to be reputable investors before we got in. And number two, the business model conducted, is it the same financing model? No, it's an equity participation model. It's not financing model when we give you loan. So it's an equity participation really. If there's a guidebook, well, we operate the same as many venture capital. You know, if you wanna learn more about venture capital investment, you can Google it. You can you can look at the Taking Asia, Deals with Asia journals, and learn how to get introduced to VCs.
Great. And some questions about the AI. And what do you think about the AI in the future of startups?
Oh, excuse me. My previous funds at MDI Ventures, we invested heavily too in AI companies. We, Indonesia's AI companies, Singapore AI companies, American companies too. Definitely, there's a huge opportunity in AI.
And also following up questions, AR and VR market.
I never believe in it. I don't know, AR, VR market, because if you can see the Facebook acquisition of Oculus Rift, it didn't go anywhere. I think they will, the AR and VR sector will need a new huge uplifting, to find a new case studies for it.
I should add some comments. What do you think about the isolation now we are living? Social isolation and social distance. If these viruses and also outbreaks will be sustaining in next years, do AR and VR market grow all globally and with, of course, good products? Because as you mentioned, the products are not ready for the market. Probably that was the reason, and probably the audience was not ready. But today, all of the world is locked down their homes, and now AR and VR market maybe with a good product more efficient, especially in gaming, for example.
Yeah. Well, in gaming, I don't know. In gaming, especially if you see the PlayStation, they have a quite AR VR interface right there, right? But it's only limited to that ecosystem, to PlayStation ecosystem. I don't know what else that Oculus Rift can give us, or any other brand. But we shall see. I'm not sure. I'm not sure in AR VR. I never invested in the sector anyway. So, yeah.
Another question about interesting sector is from Fabio. Do you think about the garden industry in Indonesia? I think you have already mentioned that you are investing in fintech, but do you also interested in, or which kinds of VCs are interested in these sectors, verticals? We lost Nicko. I think he will be online soon. Meanwhile, we are waiting for Nicko. I can answer your questions now. If you have any questions, I'm reading the chat box. Meanwhile, we are waiting, and Nicko is online now. So if you have any questions, I can answer before Nicko is online, and we can talk about all right. What do you think about the future startup that will be good to be investing? These are tough questions, of course. It depends on, as we have hosted many investors on our webinars and interviews. So the common answer to that question is it depends on the investors' thesis, and all the investors has different kinds of interest on startups. Some of the investors are looking for some verticals such as gaming, some others are fintech. So it depends on the investor's perspective. There is no direct answer to them. Of course, yes, Nicko is online, and
Yes.
I was filling up your space. So
Yeah.
what do you think about the future startup that will be good to be investing?
What do you think about the future startup that will be fit or good to be investing? Well, those who are, well, clearly the answer will be those who really solve people's problems, market problems, right? You have a validate problems that need solutions. Because here's the deal, right? If you are working in a startup right now, if you are building a company, you have to specify. You have to address one problem to be solved. You cannot solve like a million problem right away. And then after you identify this one problem and you try to create the best solution for it, whether this can really solve the problem that you're addressing. If not, then you do pivot, right? And you go back to your drawing board, and then you re-strategize and look for another problem to solve. So if you're such a founder, then we should talk.
And also,
Okay.
we should get several last questions. One of them is we have already told about it, how to select best team for a early stage startup, seed stage startup, and while you are in MVP stage or prototype stage.
Ooh, okay. Well, my experience in seed startups is the team, right? How do you select the best team for a seed startup? Yeah, you need to be able to invite people, in a way that is not offer them money or offer them safety for their future, but really to join your cause. And you have to have a mission statement that you are able to sell to people.
So the last questions, let's because we have many questions on the right side, but if an investor gets you for your pitch deck, you send the deck for the investor for a month, but you don't get any news from the investor, how do you follow up?
Okay. Well, you get only one shot in this, right? Because there's a possibility that your idea suck or your deck need rework. You can email them, like hey, I send you my deck for last month. If let me know if I can improve from the deck. Show them that you really want to learn, from it, rather than wanna get their money.
Nicko, thank you very much for this nice fireside chat and interview.
Thank you.
And we are very happy to see you on our YouTube channel live broadcast as well. So hopefully this outbreak will finish soon, and we will be happy to excite you to see you face to face in Istanbul at Startup Istanbul event.
Looking forward for that. Looking forward for the boat trip.
Yes, we are excited as well. Elif is also online.
Thank you, Nicko, for your contribution.
Yeah. Thank you, Elif.
Thank you, Nicko. We hope to see you in Istanbul.
See you. Bye-bye.
Stay healthy, guys.
Bye-bye.
You too. Bye-bye.